Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Daniel O'Callaghan from Nature Build. So Daniel runs a landscaping and water feature business based in Bendigo in Victoria. And he initially started out working in some heavy timber construction. So he does some beautiful timber work as well. And then after he did that, he discovered water features, went over to the US to learn as much as he could over there, and now he's really specialised in it, and he's done plenty and does some just phenomenal work. So it's not only awesome to see the work he does, but talking to him, I absolutely loved as well. So I don't know how good the editing is because when I was editing through it, I found myself sort of getting caught up in just listening to what he was saying again. Because it's yeah, hopefully other people enjoy as much as I do, but I absolutely love chatting to him. And he got a great point about how he started out doing the water features and promoting that. It's a great lesson for people like starting their business. So once you've got your first project done, what he did was just took a heap of different photos from different angles and zoomed in and zoomed out and just take as many different photos so it doesn't necessarily look like the same project. And then you've got plenty of content just from that one project, and then you get more from that project, and then it just builds on from there. So I loved when he spoke about that, and also how before he started the business, when he was working for different companies, he would learn a lot from other trades as well. So he's got a high skill set of different trades by working around those different trades and then learning what they do, which is another great thing to do when you're working in construction. And he also had a good chat about how he initially was building the business up and it was doubling turnover year after year, but then it got a bit too big, the company, so he dialed it back down, and that's a similar path other people have taken, and it's not always just the best decision to just keep growing and growing. So yeah, heaps of good tips in this as well as a fun chat. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Daniel O'Callaghan. Daniel, thank you for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on. Oh, look, I started in the industry in a pretty organic way, I suppose. I'm actually was a chef for a lot of years previously. So I got to a pretty young age still. I think I was 23 or 24 when I left and decided I was going to pursue other things because I wanted to get out of the kitchen and learn some more hands-on sort of stuff. And always had a bit of a hobby passion for woodworking and stuff like that. And so it led me down the road of heavy timber carpentry, which is another one of my loves. So I started working with builders. Zon Lucchesi was a great builder, and Matty Boyle and stuff like that around this area. They work with a lot of recycled timbers, big heavy post and beam work, and creating rustic sort of style trusses for houses and that sort of thing. So I got right into that and changed industries and was doing mostly heavy timber work and recycled timber work. And then as sort of time went on, we were doing a bit more sort of plaster work building, and I was like, wow, this really isn't sort of my thing. I want to sort of go out and do more of my own stuff, which is sort of heavy timber work. And that sort of led me outside, I suppose. And then from leading me outside, then I started to focus on the ponds and the water features as well, which actually came about from me being real crook one year and sort of doing a bit of research and found these water features. And it was one of those moments where I just went, oh my God, this is something this is my childhood. I grew up on horse farms and, walking up and down creeks and climbing trees and building cubby houses and everything else. And I just always saw ponds as these ugly concrete holes in the ground. And all of a sudden I found this aquascape methodology that was natural rock work and a natural ecosystem. And I just threw myself into it head first, really. So being a bit of an ADHD kid as I am, I don't do anything by halves. And so I think first year I was in the US over at Pondemonium that I decided to start it on. And then, I just went to every job I could. I went to every build a pond day that they had. I went and worked with other great, Ben Harris Gardens. I went and worked with him. He knew I had a background in heavy timber work and stuff as well. So jumped on a lot of jobs with him and learned a lot. And then, Patrick Hanley, as you know, I got in with Pat on a few projects and just, really just dedicated myself to it for, nearly 10 years and sort of just soaked up every bit of information that I could. So that's really how I got into the water feature aspect and the heavy timber work. And the landscaping sort of was almost secondary for me, I suppose. Like it was something that came about. I've got a fantastic foreman, Adam Marshall, been in the industry for near on 30 years, and he's been with me for about 7 now. And so he's been a wealth of knowledge and experience for me as well, with the landscaping aspect of it, where, I've my background was always in the heavy timber work and the construction of ponds and water features and all that sort of stuff. So it's been a great sort of partnership over the last nearly decade. So it's and that's sort of my story of how I got into it.
So does Adam do the ponds as well, or do you just stick him to doing the landscaping side of things, or do you work?
No, we all do a bit of everything. So it's like I there's not a lot that I feel like I can't do. That's I came from a background of my dad was on farms, and I grew up with him building stables and round yards and welding fences and gates and lining up fences every school holidays and everything else. So I came from a pretty hands-on background where I sort of had a fair bit of experience doing most things, and then through my building and carpentry as well, I was always in with the other trades, learning how to do everything, and giving people a chop out on the weekend to do some plumbing work and stuff like that, and so I got a fairly good breadth of knowledge from that. So we all sort of jump in and do everything. So a great one, I suppose, is probably that Keilor project that I put up on the page a fair bit. We did everything start to finish: excavation, steel work, timber work, decking, pond construction, paving, walling. Everything was in house from our crew. So we sort of try to do everything ourselves, and that's one from a quality control perspective, and two from a timing perspective. I got really frustrated early years where I was trying to get other trades to come in, and they would pull out last minute or couldn't do something, and then I just went, I'm just going to keep it in house from now on, and then I'm in control of the sort of the time frames.
Yeah, the clients love that as well. Like they want to only, like, in a perfect world, they just have to deal with one person who's, if not doing everything, organizing everything. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and obviously, it's like anything you play. We're specialists in water features and stuff like that as well. So we quite often work with other landscaping companies and work with other landscape designers and landscape construction firms and stuff like that. And I'm very happy to collaborate with people and go, yeah, mate, absolutely. You guys do the landscape, we'll do the water feature. It's and it's great. And generally, it's handy for them because they have somebody that also understands the landscape construction side. So we know what's coming in. We know not to get in their way at certain times. We know how to work around each other. So it makes it easier, which I think a lot of time when you've got multiple trades, that's half the issue, is that you're all trying to get in the same spaces or work on top of each other, or something along those lines, and it gets pretty frustrating. So if you understand what the process is, you generally know what's coming next to be able to plan for it. So.
yeah, it's such a good experience when when there's multiple trades like working for each other and not just for themselves, because so they'll sort of have an idea on what you need to do in a certain sequence, so then they'll know I need to do this bit before so that they can continue on with this. So it's good
Yeah.
when you get along like that.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of the things I love about sort of being country Victoria, sort of Bendigo, Ballarat area. I don't do a huge amount of commercial. I've done little bits of commercial, but mostly residential for me. And I treat everything like I'm the one doing the next step. So if I'm doing something and I've got to get set up for it, then I'm setting it up the way that I would want it set up for myself when I get there. And I think that makes a big difference to the trades that you work with as well, because they get there and they go, oh, geez, it's cleaned up, it's prepped, it's ready to go. Like there's not just stuff in my way. You've thought about the way that I'm going to come in and work on it afterwards, because I want to prep it the way that I would want to come back to it. So yeah, it's and I think that makes a big difference, especially when you get used to working with other trades sometimes where you're on sort of larger commercial sites and stuff, and everyone just does their ABC and then walks away. And that can be really frustrating when you're coming in and going, oh man, we've got to come wait for these guys to come back now to move that. Yeah, so I try to make sure that we're thinking ahead a little bit and getting stuff set up for people the way we want it. So
Yeah, I do the same thing. Like if we need to get a plumber in to tap into the water mains, I won't just get them to come and do it and say it's probably around there somewhere. I'll dig it, expose it,
yeah,
knowing how much I'll need to tap in, like any flex. So you just make it as easy for them as possible, so that, like, because I'll probably still charge the same amount, but they appreciate it. So then they'll come to you sooner if they know that that's the kind of thing you do, so you can get them sooner.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It makes a huge, huge difference if you get there and they know that they're going to have a real hard time trying to find it because you haven't marked it out properly and they're hand digging for the next 4 hours. Then they're probably going to be pretty slow to put you on their list when
Yep.
your number comes up.
Yep. Now, with the heavy timber stuff that you're doing, were you doing any of those fancy connections where they don't use screws and fixings?
Yep, I've done a bit of mortise and tenon work and stuff like that, and I actually did a bit of that on a project for Ben Harris down in Footscray, which I got along great with Ben. We did quite a lot of projects together over the years, and it was one of those. He let me have my creative sort of rhythm as well, which it's always awesome because I'm a very creative person, and I'd be sitting there. We're doing this pondless waterfall, and we're doing a pergola for it out of these recycled timbers, and I'm sitting there and we're at lunch, and I'm going, "Hey Ben, something they do in Japan. It's pretty cool, but I don't know how we'll do it. Is we land that front timber right on top of that framing boulder and notch into it and stuff like that." And he's like, "Could you do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, mate. Yeah, we can do it. Like it'll take me a bit of time, but we can do it." And so then he's like, "Yep, go for it, mate." And so then all of a sudden that organically just becomes this feature that just set the whole garden sort of up to. So we had this, we actually core drilled down into the boulder and then chem set a steel rod in there and then drilled up into the timber and chem set and fixed it up in there. And then I was underneath the timber with a grinder, flat disc, just shaping it to the rock and stuff like that and scribing it. And when it was done, it looked amazing because it was part of the waterfall. It was right next to the spillway and it had the post landing on top of it. And then it had this other 3 posts set back with granitic sand and a little sort of seating area. And it was one of those things that I just absolutely loved. And that was the same sort of thing. I did an arbor sort of walkthrough, and I did it all mortise and tenon joined with hardwood pegs and stuff like that in it. And but Ben was always one of those that was happy for me to go off on a little creative tangent, which is always nice.
Yeah, I love that because and if he's quoted that job, he certainly wouldn't have allowed for that. But so he's going to lose money on it. But that, like
Yeah,
you said, that makes the project.
absolutely. And look, it's up to us as tradesmen and stuff like that to communicate and say, okay, look, here's where we can get better efficiency, or here's where it's worth spending that extra couple of hours on getting those joints, spot on tight, and stuff like that. So I think that's swings and roundabouts a little bit, and you just try to make sure that you're bringing out the best in the project at the end. So
Yep. So when you said you were unwell, so then you looked into ponds. So you hadn't built one. You just thought about you saw them and you liked them, so you thought you'd want to learn how to do it. Is that right?
basically, yeah. So it's I was crook as a dog in bed, and I was going through YouTube, and I'd never seen an aquascape water feature before, and so I found these, and I just went on a YouTube rabbit hole to looking at features and stuff like that. And I had a bit of experience in rock work and stuff, but not so much the water features. And so I rang Brett, who was the local rep, and I said, "G'day Brett, how you going?" I said, "I'm Dan, and I want to build water features." And he was like, "Okay, mate, no worries. I'll send you an email out with some training stuff." And so that was where it all sort of started, I suppose. And then just look, it's like anything, yourself having guys on. There's certain people that are gonna dedicate themselves to learn, and that's sort of what I just tried to make myself be. So went and did Lake Gula with Patrick. So I was working 2 weeks on and then 1 week off. So I'd work down there for 2 weeks up in Queensland and then fly back down for a week, see how everything was going down here, work on site for a week, see the family, fly back up, work for 2 weeks up there. And, just immerse myself in that as well. And that's part of that. Yeah, part of that thing is you're working on site with great builders and artists of the year and stuff like that. And it's starting to get dark. And Patrick says, "Oh, we might be able to get a few more in, but it's 5:30 or 6 o'clock or something, so you can finish up if you want to." And a few boys finish up and go and have a few beers, and I get on the radio and I say to Pat, "Mate, I'll go till you go." So we go, "Okay, no worries." So we push through for another 2 or 3 hours until it's dark, and Pat says, "All right, mate, shut it off. Let's go, keep going." But what that does is Pat immediately goes, "If I've got another project, I know who I'm calling," because you're willing to sort of put in the work, put in the hours, and know that that you'll get the job done. So I think that's an important part of it, not to discount hard work in your journey. Really, it's you don't need to kill yourself, but you have to be dedicated.
Yeah, it's insane what you can get done, I reckon, in those last couple of hours of the day.
Yeah,
It blows me away. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense because you should be more tired and fatigued from it, but I don't know if it's just less, like on the projects I work on, there's less people around, so you can actually, there's less. You just seem to get probably double the amount of work done in that time period than what you would have if it was earlier in the day.
Yeah, I think you find your rhythm too. So you know yourself. You start work in the morning, and you sort of you're getting stuff organised, and you're coming in fiery, but you're sort of not in your flow yet. And then you start really getting into your flow, and then you go, oh, it's lunchtime. We'll stop and have a quick bite or something, and then you go, oh geez, I've got to get back into the flow again. And sometimes it can be really hard, and I had to learn that from running a business, that I had to not do that as much, because I would have boys sort of going, hey, mate, are we stopping for lunch at some stage? Because I was just pushing through because I was sort of in my rhythm. And then I'd go, oh, geez, what time is it? Oh, sorry, boys. Yeah, no, look, just yell out and stop and have some lunch if I haven't called it, because sometimes I'm sort of in my zone and just concentrating on what I'm doing, and just sort of don't think about the fact that I want to stop, because I just want to keep getting the job going while the rhythm's there.
Yep. Well, we don't stop for lunch. Yeah, none of
Yeah,
us. So,
yeah,
and like sometimes there's days when the guys do,
yeah,
but like if you need to, you do. But yeah, it generally like you'll stop, sit down for half an hour and have something to eat, and then you stand up and you feel like crap, and then you've got to get going again, and you're just slower. And yeah,
yeah,
it was harder the first time I started doing it from because of a guy who worked with us. I thought he was a maniac, but then
yeah,
but then now I think you're a maniac if you do stop, depending on what you're
yeah.
doing. But yeah,
Yeah, it's
90% of
definitely
the time you
harder.
don't need to.
Yeah, yeah, and it's everyone's sort of, people have got their own. Like, I can't, people stop for smokos and stuff like that, and I'm like, I don't know how do you get anything done in the day if you're stopping half a dozen times. Like, it's a lot of the time it's easier just to go through, and you get more work done, and you finish earlier, and then you go, sweet, we're good to go.
Yeah,
It's,
we've been working on a project and there's a renderer on there, and he stops at least 8 times a day. That's
yeah,
insane.
yeah, yes,
But yeah, and when I worked at the bank, the people, a lot of the people work there, they were just insanely strict about if they didn't have their morning tea on the right time, they lose their mind. They're like,
yeah,
they have to have it,
yeah,
and they get cranky if they don't. So yeah, it's a different mindset.
yeah. It is definitely.
So when did you actually start your business, or what stage of that was it?
Oh, I started working for myself probably 15 years ago or something like that. And then sort of solely focused on the water feature aspect, not solely, but mostly focused on the water feature aspects, probably about 10, 11 years ago. And then sort of Nature Build Proprietary Limited became, or Nature Build became the business probably 7 or 8 years ago. And then I've just been focused on it ever since. Really, it's been over a decade that we've been sort of focused on the water features as our main calling card, which has been something that I love. I've always been a passionate person, regardless of what I've been doing. I've sort of always chosen my career choices and my life choices based on what I was passionate about, and then figured the rest out around that. So your water features have been much the same. It's been something that I love doing, and I love the creativity of it, and the difference going to work every day. You can build 10 pondless waterfalls in a row, and not one of them will be the same.
Yeah,
So you get there and you go, oh, I've got Highland slate today, or I've got Castlemaine rock today, or I've got field granite today, or basalt today, or even two of the same rock, and you go, oh, well, this one's got these beautiful jagged lines in it. We've got this great little triangle piece that we can set up here, and that's a nice framer, and oh, look at that one, that'll create a cool spillway, and it's just like a big kid with a jigsaw puzzle and a machine, really. So
yeah. I imagine if you're like on holidays or somewhere, anywhere you go, you'd see a rock and you would picture how it would work in a water
oh,
feature.
I'm shocking. My partner and my friends just shake their head at me a lot of the times, because I'm looking out in the paddock saying, "Oh, look at that rock! I could get a 50 tonner, and I reckon I could get that up as a frame rock." And I've found a little waterfall or a creek somewhere, and I've jumped the fence, and I'm already halfway down there, and they're going, "Oh God, here he goes!" But that's what I'm passionate about, and I'm looking at the way that the water comes off a rock, or I'm looking for the way that it pinches between two rocks, and then it creates a fall off this other piece of rock that's there, and something that sparked my interest, or sometimes even looking under the water, I'm going, oh, that water's moving really cool, and you go and look under there, and there's a few sort of larger rocks just underneath the surface of the water, and it's making the water do all these really cool ripples and stuff, and so then that you put that in your mind, and so next time next time you're doing a feature and you want to create, you go, I've got this big open space for a streaming area, but I want to create a little bit of, interest. So you think, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put some of these rocks underneath there, create that real ripple effect, and chop the water up a little bit, and that's how you make stuff look natural, because you're jumping down in the creek beds and checking stuff out, and seeing why things are happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely love it as well. I don't do a lot of it. And so Brett from Aquascape, I think he said if you want to do more, if you want to do a lot of ponds and aquascaping, you need to market your business that that's what you do. You can't say that that's part of what you do, because
Yeah.
yes, you sort of need to really niche down into it. And like you can do all the other stuff, but if you want to do more of it, you just got to look like you only do that.
Yeah, look, well, I don't. So, obviously, that's a very main component of what we do, and I think anyone that jumps on our Instagram or Facebook or anything like that would figure that out pretty quickly. But I don't want to, just do that, because I like the other aspects of it, and I like being able to finish them off and stuff like that. But no, it's true in a way that you want to let people know that what you're doing is that you're an expert in this trade and what you're doing, rather than just going, well, I'm another landscaper that says I can do water features, because we go and fix 100 of those a year. So it's not something that it's like anything. You might do it a couple of times and go, okay, I'm getting a bit of a feel for it. But until you've done it, 20, 30, 50 times, and had that problem and had that mistake and had to fix that and everything else, well, then you're still learning as you go a lot, and there's a lot that can, water doesn't lie. You can be slightly out of level somewhere, or have a slightly low edge on something when it doesn't involve water, or if it's just rock work or something like that. Water's going to tell you real quick where you're at, and it's going to take the path of least resistance, and it's going to get out the liner, and you've got to be aware of flow rates in pumps and stuff like that. So, for example, we got given a 40 mil line for a water feature that was supposed to have 25 to 30,000 litres an hour coming through it. So while we know a 40 mil line maxes out at about 14,000 litres an hour, so we know we're not going to, no matter what pump we put on it, we know we're not going to get enough flow rate with that. So I've got to tap into a 50 mil line that's there as well as the 40 mil line that we've got dedicated for ourselves, so that we can get enough flow to get the pitch that we want on the waterfalls. But you learn a lot of that from experience, and from the research, and really getting involved in the CAC programs and Pondemonium and all that sort of stuff that they have available, and really sort of getting into it. And then you become an expert in that sort of niche, and then you can sort of offer your services in that niche field.
Yeah. And yeah, and there is just insane amount to learn. And like you say, like there's one thing that there's all those different rocks to work with. So to learn how they work, because like there's some are more modular and some are rounder, so the water's going to flow different on them. But then even just the starting point that you've got to work with. So there's areas that are going to be just about dead flat and they want a waterfall. And then there's really steep slopes where they want one. So learning how to work with those is completely different as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that's there's a lot of client education as well, where somebody says to me, "Oh, we want a 2 meter high waterfall," and they're on a perfectly flat block. So, well, you don't really. What the best way to do it is to go, okay, well, how much height can we get here to be able to naturally grade that back, where it doesn't look like you built up a big volcano out of nothing, and then where we can put some really nice wing rocks on the outside, so that it all looks like it's well placed and part of the landscape. And then we might be able to go up about 700 or 800 mil and get 2 or 3 nice falls with some streaming area in between, which is going to give you heaps more depth. It's going to give you heaps more interest, and it's going to give you a much more natural looking falls, rather than the big old sort of double rock stacks on top of each other that's just trying to pitch as high as it can. And vice versa, sometimes steep slopes aren't that great to work with either. You would think, as a pond builder or a water feature builder, that this big steep slope with a vertical thing like that is going to be awesome, because you just have these big tall waterfalls, but it's actually really hard to stage it back. So what we find ourselves doing is digging quite a long way back, so that we can create 2 or 3 tiers with some interest, then cutting our next shelf up, and then doing another 2 or 3 tiers back. And the same again, that the Keilor project, that was one where we had to basically start up the top right hand corner and work my way backwards down the hill. So I had to build the top of the stream section as I drove along, I had to build the top of the stream section there, and then basically come back down on the excavator, dig out my next section along there, build the next two stream sections, seam the liners together, and sort of do that all the way down the hill until I got down to the waterfall, down to the basin. So it's sometimes those big steep ones aren't any more logistically fun than than a flat one.
Yeah. And so how long had you been, how many ponds had you done when you went to Pandemonium?
The first one, the first
Yeah.
Pandemonium that I went to, I'd
Yeah.
done exactly zero. So the first time I did Pandemonium, I think I'd done one build a pond day, but I was dedicated to it. I loved the idea of it. I loved the collaborative learning aspect of it. I loved the fact that there was 300, 500 contractors there that you could ask questions and they were happy to answer, and that there was no, oh, I'm not telling you that because that's how I do it or anything like that. It was just like, yeah, mate, no worries. Come around to the house and I'll show you. And it was just this whole different mentality to not most trades, but a lot of trades where they're just, they're like, well, I can't let him get a job, otherwise it's one I'm not getting. And all of a sudden you start realizing, oh, well, actually, you in a collaborative effort, you learn more, you sell more jobs, you don't underbid yourself, all these things, and so you're actually getting able to talk to these people and see what it's like in real life. So I jumped on a plane and headed over pretty much within about 4 months of me learning what aquascape was. And I was lucky enough to meet some really great people over there, and a few guys that are artists of the year, and pick their brains as well. And did the rookie waterfall building contest over there with a few other Aussies and stuff, which we managed to win, which was always a good sort of confidence booster. And I think I just came back with a bit of a fire in my belly as well. I remember speaking to Brett, and I'm a pretty competitive person, and Brett said, "Oh, look, mate, you take it easy. You'll probably sell one or two in a year, one or two a year or something." And no, I came back with a fire in my belly, going, "I'm going to sell 10." And so I dedicated myself. I social media, I marketed, I sold my first pond, and I took 30 or 40 pictures of it in different angles, and some of the waterfalls and some of the fish and some of the other side of the pond, and sort of kept that marketing going on my website so that I could show people what it was about. And yeah, one pond in the ground sells two ponds in the ground sells four, and so on and so on. And now, yeah, I don't even know how many we've got in the ground now. Probably in the hundreds, I would say, but or close to. But just, yeah, the more you put them in the ground, the more you can show people what the lifestyle's like and what they look like, and then you can and people go, oh, this is amazing, I love it. It's they get that emotional connection with it, the sound of it, and then you can go, okay, well, let's have a look at some options. What's the space you've got? We can do something cool that's either a pondless or a fish pond or a recreation pond, or urns or bowls, or there's so many aspects then that we can sort of talk to them about and try to find what works best for them and their space and their style. So
Yeah, that way you started advertising is the ideal way to start. Like when you're starting out a business, or when you've just done one project, you just take as many different photos of like in close of different things. So it's not obvious that it's from the same project. So you
yeah.
can just show different things of the same overall thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I've always been very transparent with my clients and stuff like that. I went out. We went out and did a maintenance call on the first pond I ever built the other day. And Ruth's lovely, and she comes and gives you a big hug and everything else. And I'd let her know that we'd only done a couple of build a pond days and stuff, but we also priced it accordingly, and we put in all the extras and bells and whistles and everything else, and really used it as a learning sort of process, as well as trying to give her a feature that she loved, and she still loves it, and has us come out and do a bit of maintenance on it now and again, and yeah, it's great. So
Are all the Pandemoniums in Chicago? Are they all at the Aquascape HQ?
they are, yeah. So well, I think they've done. I think they may have moved some around occasionally. Like I know they did one in Carbo and stuff like that. But they do so many. They do a lot of events through the year as well. So they do different aquascape academies and stuff as well through the winter time. Which I'd love to get over to an academy. I haven't been over there yet for an academy. Being a big basketball fan, I'd love to get over there during NBA season as well. But yeah, they do Pandemonium every year, and then Patrick started doing an Aussie Pondo up at Lake Gula as well. So now they've actually switched to doing Pandemonium every second year, and then the year that they're not doing it in person, they do an online Pandemonium. So, which is good. It's obviously it's not the same as being able to go and meet people and chat and have a beer with them and stuff like that. But there's still a lot of knowledge and learning and being able to sit and watch Ed Ballou talk about ponds and water features is something you could do for 5 or 6 hours before, and he would still have a bunch to say, and still everyone's sitting there ready to listen. So
Yeah, I find him fascinating to listen to because I feel you feel so much more intelligent after listening to him because he says really complex stuff, but he explains it so well.
yeah, and he's such a genuinely great guy too. Like he's all the guys are Greg and Brian Helfrich and Ed and Chris who's not with them anymore. He's gone out by himself, but they're all just they're all brilliant blokes and they just are down to earth and they're just like us really.
Yeah,
And I think you forget that a little bit when they're talking and up on stage or anything like that. And then you sit down and actually have a chat and a beer with them and realize that they're these great blokes that just love the industry and are so passionate about it and just have absolute wealth of knowledge to teach. Like it's incredible. And Brian with his sales and design is just incredible, and just the little tidbits of information that he can give you in a 5 minute conversation that you'll spend 10 years researching and get more information out of that 5 minute chat then you have that for that rest of that research time. And Ed's much the same.
yeah.
Ed sort of answers 12 questions you didn't know you had in about an hour of conversation. So
Yep. And for anyone who doesn't know, how would you describe pandemonium?
busy. It's chaotic. So it's jam packed. So we flew over there, and I was very jet lagged the first time I went over there, and then pretty much first thing in the morning, 7 a.m. in the morning, there's you're up and going down to have breakfast. They have these massive big buffet breakfasts and stuff like that where all the contractors get together, and it's great because people know you because they follow your Instagram and they follow your pages, and so they come and introduce themselves, and you sit down for a chat and have some brekkie, and then you've got sort of workshops or pond tours or build pond days or artist of the year builds or just something from 8 o'clock in the morning. They had round coffee round tables. So basically it was a round table of 5, 10 different people who all had a specialty skill, and you could go and choose to sit on whichever one of those tables that you wanted and have your cup of coffee at 8 o'clock in the morning, and somebody would hold a conversation about their specialty, whether it be marketing or advertising or legalities or planting or anything. So you could sit down and do that cup of coffee roundtable, and then there would be talks from Ed Ballou or foremans from other companies or the artist of the year or Brian about sales or Greg himself or a keynote speaker or something like that. And that pretty much goes all the way through until the afternoon, and then you all go and have dinner at the same place you had breakfast, and then everyone heads over to the bar for a few drinks, and everyone has a few drinks and probably a couple too many a few times, and then back to the rooms, and then up again at 7 o'clock the next morning to do it all again, and you do that for 3 or 5 days, and then you jump on a plane and fly back. So it's a pretty intense learning sort of situation where you can just absorb as much information as you possibly can over that 3 to 5 days, really.
Yeah, that does sound action packed.
It is, yeah. A heck of a lot of fun though, and you walk away from that just meeting some of the best people that, I still get phone calls from guys over in the US and reach out to guys in Canada and stuff like that I chat to and that good friends with from what you've met them over there and worked with them or done one of the pond builds with them or something like that. So it's great. It's a really good thing for the industry and just for learning as well.
And being an NBA fan, that would have added extra excitement because have you worked on both of Shaq's pond builds or?
Just the one. So the first one was Artist of the Year build for Shaq, which was his first water feature. And then the second one was an Artist of the Year build, which we got the invite from Patrick Hanley and the Aquascape guys to come over, which was awesome. So that was and obviously Kai and Caleb and Patrick and myself all got along well. So we all went over as the Aussies, and then we were actually staying with the Canadians over there as well in a Airbnb. And then it was that was intense. We started work first thing in the morning and just absolutely hammered. Like there was no slowing down. There was no stopping. Nobody was, people jump on and do their social media posts and stuff like that because we're all marketing. But you'll see everyone be like, this guy's and this is what we're doing and everything else. And then you shut your phone off and you just go bang straight back into it, shovels, buckets, moving rocks. And because we had such a tight time frame to do it. Yeah, but everyone knows what they're doing and everyone knows what they had to do in what order. And it was all orchestrated by Ed, obviously, and a couple of other guys as well. And they're just, some of those guys are just machines, man. They just, they just go and go and go. And then we were working through till dinner time, and the caterers were there. We had caterers there who were serving us dinner on site. So we would finish at late dinner time in the dark, and then eat dinner on site and go off home. So
How many days was that?
I think we did that in 5 days. So, it was. I think it was 500,000 pounds of stone moved in 5 days. So it was pretty intense.
Oh, yeah, it'd be a fascinating place to work because you've got all these people who are elite at what they do, all working together. So it's not like there's some people who are just sort of learning, but they're all like top of the game.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know, like I sort of attributed it a lot like sport. You play sport, I played a lot of basketball and stuff, and you play basketball with guys that know what they're doing, and everyone just knows how to fill the space. Everyone knows how to be, where to be defensively, offensively, when they need to be there. They know who's getting the rebounds. They know who's the top shooter. They know, everyone knows their roles. They know what their strengths are, and they know how to fill the lanes properly. And it's a lot like that when you're working with, the group of artists of the year and sort of very experienced builders, is that everyone just, not one single person was above picking up a shovel, no matter how many awards they'd won or how much turnover they were doing per year or anything else. It all goes out the window, and every single bloke there was as quick to pick up a bucket or a shovel as anyone else. And that's the sort of thing where things just go smooth, because you look at Ed and those guys, and they're just working like machines. They're just going and going and going and pushing these big rocks around and organising stuff and answering questions and stuff like that. And with that, you've got good leadership and good guys that know what they're doing. You can achieve a hell of a lot of work in a short amount of time. So,
And did Shaq pop his head in much?
he didn't over the build, so he did a couple of times during the pre-build. He did. So Ed sort of went there and did a bit of excavation work and get the wetland organised and stuff like that, because obviously that's something that takes a lot of time, that is a little bit more fiddly. So he wanted to get a bit of that stuff done before everyone got there, so there wasn't too many hands involved in it. So I know Shaq dropped in 1 or 2 times during that. Then through the whole build, he pretty much wasn't there. So he was during NBA finals and stuff. So he was doing TNT and stuff like that as well. And so then we finished the build, and then he was supposed to come at the end of the build, but he couldn't make it because he got called over to Miami for finals. And so he unfortunately had to ring and say, look, I can't get there. I'll be back there next week. And so I sort of made the decision that I was going to stay for that extra week so that I could come back and get his reaction of it all and meet him myself and everything else, because I'm like, well, it's a long way over there. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. It would makes a lot of sense to just stick it out for a week longer and meet the big fella. So I went on a bit of a road trip through. Ended up going to Memphis and Nashville and stuff like that, and then came back through Alabama in a hire car, and then came back and met Shaq the next week. So it was, and then flew home after that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, it's one thing to build, a pond at his place, but to actually get to meet him as well is pretty.
Yeah. Oh, and it was awesome. And his cousins and stuff were there, and so we got chatting, and they come down to Australia a lot, and so I was chatting to his cousins and stuff while he was doing a lot more of the sort of greeting and meeting and handshaking and stuff like that, and then I got to have a chat with him and meet him and stuff as well, and do the shout out video, and he's just a genuinely sort of fun loving dude as well. And we got to go up into his treehouse that the Pete from Treehouse Masters built. That's his poker room up there. So I got to go up and get some photos in there and stuff as well, and see his existing features and his basketball court and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool.
Are you a Lakers fan, or because a lot of NBA fans, because their players move around so much, don't seem to have a team?
I am a Lakers fan. I've got a Kobe Bryant tattoo on my leg.
All right.
And I've been a Lakers fan for a lot of years. So yeah, seeing Big Shaq there was definitely as an NBA fan, a Lakers fan, it's a Kobe and Shaq sort of duo fan. It was a pretty big moment for me that I was schoolgirling pretty hard. I'll be honest. So it's it was a better, yeah, it was just a really cool sort of experience to go and work with those guys as well, and just especially for a project for someone that you've idolized your whole life as well. So it's it was pretty cool.
So what do you think about Bronny getting a game?
Yeah, well, that's it's an interesting thing. It's whether there's a bit of nepotism there,
A
but
little bit.
55th pick overall. I feel like you could do a lot worse than taking a young kid who's the son of a goat who could have a good upside at the pick 55. It's not like they took him first or second or something. So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm still okay with it as a move.
Yeah. So have you got a fair few excavators, like different sizes for what you do?
So I hire a lot. So, and again, that's just come from experience. I grew, oh geez, I grew a lot over the years. I sort of doubled my turnover every single year for 5 or 6 years, and then went, geez, this is too much. I got to a point where I was sort of I had 5 tonners, 2 tonners, 1.5 tonners, big trucks, medium trucks, skid steers, dingoes, 7 guys, everything else. And I wasn't making as much money, and I also wasn't as active I was just running around putting out fires, really. Like I wasn't on site as much. I wasn't able to keep an eye on things as much. And I wasn't able to sort of, my passion's always been, I'm not a businessman my passion isn't to be a businessman. My passion is to build ponds and water features and things that make people go, oh, wow, and we love it and everything else. That's what I do. That's what I'm passionate about. So it's been the last couple of years that I've really dialed everything back. So now I mostly hire. I've got a couple of small machines. So a little 1.5 ton excavator, and my foreman's got a dingo, and I've got a little bobcat, and then everything else we hire. So it's and that came from a lot of conversations with Greg and a lot of conversations with Patrick and stuff like that, where Pat said, mate, you do your best work when you're on site as well. You don't need to be big. You can subcontract guys if you need extra guys. You can call in other CACs if you need a hand, which I do. I brought in CACs on multiple other jobs, and Reach Rock Art came in, gave us a hand on a Harkaway project recently, and so I really.
CACs, they're certified aquascape contractors, so they've done
Correct.
an
Yeah.
aquascape
Yeah.
course.
Sorry. I forget that the lingo isn't something everyone knows, but yeah. So it's other certified contractors who are around, and obviously we've worked with a lot of them, and we know the quality of their builds and stuff like that. So you basically get to handpick from the other best builders around the state or the country or whatever, and you can generally ring them up and see what they're up to, and jump in on a project, and we go and help them out, and they come and help us out, and yeah. So it works a lot better that way, and just reduces the overheads, and allows me to be on site a lot more, actually being sort of hands on with the projects, which is sort of why I got into the industry in the first place.
Yeah, I reckon that's a great point about because some people love the business side of things, so it makes sense for them to have multiple crews and they can sort of run it.
Yeah,
But then people who actually enjoy doing the work themselves should only have small crews so that they don't have to be running around keeping other people busy. They can actually work themselves. Like I find that myself, because someone asked me how many staff I've got the other day, and I said how many it was. And he goes, "Oh, that's a good mix." I said it's too many because
yeah,
when you get too many, I do less work. So we'll get like with 5 people, we'll get the same amount of work done as what we will with 3 because I'll be doing more work on site with less people.
yeah,
So yeah, you got 2 less wages to pay, and you're
yeah.
getting the same amount of work done. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And like, it's efficiency too. Like Adam and myself, when Adam and myself are on a project together, which isn't all the time, a lot of the time we're on separate projects, but when Adam and I are on the same project together, you're just chatting. You're not even about the job, because you just know what needs to be done. You drop the excavator down, he's already starting to strap the rock. You're picking it up, he's turning it the right way. You might be sort of minor adjustments. Oh, just kick that back a little bit, see what it looks like on that side. Let's do this as a split falls. Let's do this. We'll actually push that one back. We'll backfill it a bit more. We'll do a bit of a bib liner in there, and he just knows, like he knows exactly what's happening. So you're just generally chatting like mates, or while you're working, because you don't need to be sort of telling each other what to do, because you get in that bit of a flow and then I'll jump in and start doing some detail work, and Adam will immediately jump behind me and start doing the plumbing and fitting off and stuff like that, and then I'll jump in and start doing finishing around the falls, and he'll jump in the dingo and start cleaning up, and just there's not a lot of chatting going on, because you're not there's bits of chatting going on, but it's just efficient and it's quick, and it's whereas you have other guys and and you go, okay, mate, go and grab me 3 rocks and they come back and you go, geez, they're freaking ugly rocks. It's because they just don't necessarily have the same vision as you, or or they're building for a square wall rather than a more organic pond, or whatever it is. So sometimes then you go, oh, hang on, let me come over and I'll pick some with you. And then you go, well, if I'm over there picking them anyway, I could have jumped in the machine and grabbed them myself. So it's sort of it's false efficiency sometimes. Having extra guys, I think.
Yeah, but you also got to look for a long-term vision. Like when I had, there was a period I had no apprentices, so it was just me and 2 qualified guys who had been with me since the start of their apprenticeship.
Yeah,
So, and over like 9 and 6 years. So like we didn't need to say anything. Everyone knew exactly what was happening. It was a dream. But then you're doing things like spreading mulch or doing just really basic stuff that you didn't need. You don't need to be qualified to do that. So
yeah,
you do need to have apprentices on to keep that rolling on, so that in 4 years, when the older guys are getting too old, then the younger ones can start taking over. So it's just sort of a gradual progression. So
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
that
And
is good, but
finding
it's not a long term thing.
and finding the right guys too. I think attitude is so much of it. It's you can teach skills to a lot of people, but teaching the right attitude to people is much harder. So we've got a young kid who's actually I've got a diesel mechanic who does my work on my trucks and stuff like that, and it was his son, and he said, "Oh, my son needs to get out and get off the couch and go and do something. Do you want to take him on and get him to do some work?" And we said, "Oh yeah, no worries, mate. Bring him in. We'll get him doing something." And then he's been with us for a bit over a year, I think now, and or a year and a half, and he's great. He's switched on. He's quiet, but he's always sort of doing dedicated and doing the right thing, and just really sort of chops on with it and likes the detail work, and you can he'll give anything a go, and loves jumping on the machines, and he's got pretty good at the machines pretty quick and stuff like that. So it's and then the more the more better their attitude, and the more they'll take on, and then the quicker they get on to the nicer stuff, the better stuff. It's and you might say, "Oh, how'd you like doing that, Dill?" And he said, "Oh, didn't love it, but he did it for 8 hours straight without complaining." But and you go, "That's all part of it, mate." I used to say in the kitchen, every job's got something like cutting onions. It's an important part of the job, but you don't like doing it. It's
Yeah.
And no matter what industry you're working and what job you do, everyone's cutting onions at some stage.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that saying where if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. But I love what I do, but there's some days I don't like what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's
It's
right. Yeah,
pretty normal.
yeah,
And yeah, and with you saying that you hire equipment, I hire all my equipment as well. Like I don't own any machines at all.
yep,
Like every year, my account will say, "Oh, you seem to spend a bit of money on hiring. Have you thought of buying it?" I said, "Not a chance." Because
yeah,
for one, they're not. It's not the same machine I'm hiring every time. Like sometimes it's like a dingo equivalent. Sometimes it's an excavator. Sometimes it's a truck. So
yeah,
it's not the same. But when I hire a machine and it breaks down, I ring up the hire company and they bring out another one and take the broken one away. Like that
yeah,
doesn't happen when you've got your own. You've got to fix it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they've
yeah.
got experts maintaining it all the time as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and it's a huge difference. That downtime to fix a machine that's broken on site can make or break a project.
Yeah.
Versus ringing someone up and being like, "Mate, this is broken down. I need another one." Or. So I use Cal a lot from Small Plant Hire over in Ballarat, and he's great. He'll drop stuff off, pick stuff up whenever, and you ring him up and say, "Mate, something's gone wrong," and he goes, "No worries, mate. I'll be there in half an hour, and I'll work on it," because he's a mechanic, and he'll get it fixed up for you ready before the next morning, so it's ready to go. And if he can't, then he'll have something sitting in its place. So it's such a big thing, and I love having my own little machines because they're handy, especially those jobs where you go, "Oh, I'm just going to sit on the machine all day and do this, and then I can leave that and go to another job for a couple of days, and then come back and sit on that machine again." Then you go, "Oh, I'm not having to pick it up and drop it off and rehire and all that sort of stuff." But for the majority of it, I had a 5 tonner and I sold it because most of the time it sat in my yard.
Yeah.
And I had a bigger truck and I sold it because most of the time it sat in the yard. But you find out, like, I've got a small truck with a crane on the back of it. It's a little 2 cubic meter tipper with toolboxes, and it's brilliant. We use it daily. So, I will keep that because I love it, and it's really handy. Same as the little 1.4 tonner that you can take the top off it and get in garages and stuff like that. Everything else I'll hire
Yeah.
because then I can, if I want a 3 tonner, I can get a 3 tonner. If I want an 8 tonner, I can get an 8 tonner, and I'm not having to float it or keep it or pay it off or anything like that. So
Yeah, and there are times because you've got your machine, you would use that when you wouldn't hire one, like you because you've got
for
it,
sure,
you'll use it. So there are certainly benefits to it.
yeah,
But not for me.
yeah, and that's it. You got to find what works for you.
Yep. You're being Bendigo, yeah?
Correct. Yeah.
Now how far do you travel for work?
Oh, how far have I travelled? Or
Yeah,
so I've
or
travelled
both.
all over. Obviously, I've gone and done quite a few projects with Pat up in Queensland and stuff as well, up on the sunny coast and stuff. I try not to do that as much these days, just because it gets a little bit testing. But I love travelling and working with the other guys and stuff too. So it's about finding what works as far as being on the tools in your business and being able to travel and go and work with other people as part of that business as well. But yeah, we've done projects up in Wonthaggi, we've done projects in Keilor, done projects in Traralgon, done projects Bacchus Marsh, got another one in Bacchus Marsh coming up, Bendigo, Halls Gap, Dalesford, Ballarat, Kyneton, Trentham. So yeah, the bulk of our work is that Castlemaine, Dalesford, Ballarat, Kyneton, Bendigo sort of area, and then depending on the project. So obviously, if somebody says, "Oh, I want a little 1 meter stream," it's probably not going to be cost efficient for us to drive 4 hours out there with our trucks and machines and everything else to do it.
Yep.
In which case, we'll put them onto another contractor that's nearby and say, "Oh, these guys are great. Give them a call. They'll be able to help you out." And then if it's a larger project, so we did a large recreation pond in Wonthaggi, or just outside of Wonthaggi. So we drove down there, had accommodation for 3 weeks, and brought in Rick and Chris Hogan from Reach Rock Art, as well as Ben Harris and my crew, which was crew of 3 at the time, and we finished that project in 3 weeks. So, and then we all went about our separate ways, and the Reach boys have got machines, and Ben Harris has got a wealth of knowledge in the plumbing aspects of it all, and sort of the figuring all that stuff out, and then getting in there and doing the rock work and the wetlands and all that sort of stuff, and then so depending on where we're at, we'll we'll obviously hire machines and stuff for that as well. But we travel around a bit, but we're trying to stay a little bit more local these days. So we did a lot of traveling at the start because I was trying to get runs on the board and trying to get as many projects as I could to showcase what we could do and what we were doing and stuff like that. So I was sort of, I would go anywhere, and as long as it had a water feature in it, I was pretty happy to go anywhere. These days we're sort of trying to stay within that sort of hour radius of Bendigo, really.
Yeah. And do you do any projects that don't have water features in them?
We do, but just not as many, really. One, most people that find us because of the water features. Two, from a design aspect, if I'm talking to someone and they're like, "Well, what do you think?" I'm always going to go, "Well, I know what would work perfectly here. You're doing this beautiful Castlemaine slate wall. You're going to have a recycled timber pergola up the top. You're going to have steps coming down. We could build in a little 2 meter pondless to that and have running water coming down there as well." And so generally they're going to go, "Well, chuck it in the quote and we'll see if we can fit it in the budget." So for me, we do a lot of work with incorporating water features because I understand how important they are to make the landscape 3 dimensional. It's all of a sudden you're adding all these aspects as far as the sound and different visuals and different emotional connections and everything else. Not that I don't love just your normal sort of paving and pergola or something like that, but it just adds an extra dimension to it that I think people realize once. And sometimes I'll go, "Okay, do you want to come and have a look at a project that's got one?" And and they say, "Oh yeah, that'd be great." And then they see it and they go, "Oh, I love that. That'd be awesome to be able to sit down and drink a glass of wine there and be able to watch the waterfalls or something would be perfect." And so we incorporate something like that. But we still do landscapes without water features in them. But yeah, a lot of the time our landscapes have water features in them as well.
And are you getting many projects from designers that you're quoting on that they've included it in, so they recommend you as part of it?
Yeah, a few. So obviously, Ben Harris I've worked with and stuff, and Robin Larson over at, when we did Clifftop at Dalesford, the Samurai Villas there was the architect there. I've actually got one that I'm doing for Robin Payne, I believe it is.
Yep.
So that's the one coming up in Bacchus Marsh. So yeah, look, it's great to be able to work with designers and get on the same page as them as well. I've done a lot of our own stuff, obviously, but we're a bit more of an organic design process as well. And then guys like Ross, who I know reasonably well from talking to him about water features, and we did a bit of consulting work with him on a project that he was doing and stuff like that. So I'd love the opportunity to do some more collaborations with Ross Ubergang and stuff as well. And yeah, just I love working with designers. I love working with anyone that's passionate about what they're
Yeah.
doing. If you're passionate about what you're doing and we can sit there and get excited about what we're going to do, I'm going to love it. So it's yeah, but we're doing more and more of that as time goes on, and yeah, just depending on different clients and different needs and stuff like that, we'll often recommend a designer to them if they want full scale designs, or if they want a more organic design approach, we're happy to help them out with that. So
Yep. And what have you got at your place in terms of water features?
now, not much. So I used to have we sold our house, geez, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, with a separation and stuff like that. And so, but we had about a 9 meter pondless waterfall coming down the back of the hill towards the back door and stuff, which I miss a lot. It's just having that running water, sit out there with a cup of coffee and listen to the water feature in the morning and see, especially if you're getting up early, seeing that first light with the flickering of the lights under the waterfalls and stuff like that. It's a pretty nice way to wake up. So it's nowadays we got a few fish tanks here, so I sort of put my energy or my sort of zen moments into the fish tanks at home. But yeah, I'm on the hunt to find another property where I can have enough space for a nice shed and a few water features. I'd love to. I've got some design ideas for a sort of a mini recreation pond that's got a few sort of interesting features and perks and stuff in there that I want to showcase one day, and do a little sort of waterfall coming through the beach area and stuff like that, and yeah, little exposed ag floor with pebbles in it and lots of jet lines and stuff like that, and just a sort of a little sort of semi-formal, I suppose, semi-formal recreation pond with a stream and waterfalls that I'd like to build one day. So
Yeah.
it's on the list when I get the time and the space and everything else.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hear you're doing one at your place at the minute.
Yeah. I didn't do it very well, so had to buy a bit more foam than I thought I would need.
Yeah, it
But
happens. It happens. It happens a lot. It's generally, especially when you're sort of figuring out backfilling and bib linering and stuff like that,
yeah.
you go through a few more cans of foam than you think, and you end up wearing probably more of it than you'd like to, and
Yeah, I had
you
that,
realize how
which is
sticky that
disappointing.
stuff is.
Yeah, because I was just going to do some on me on the weekend, so I thought I'll go and do it. I was just wearing my normal clothes, and then I got the expensive sprayer that you can
Yeah.
get the bigger cans on, and the hose came off the nozzle, just sprayed everywhere. So it's got me nice cream shorts. I've got black
Oh,
on me now, so they're ruined. But,
yeah,
yeah,
I'd recommend using the Pro Guns. The Pro Guns are great. It's yeah, just really good amounts of foam and stuff like that, and yeah, and get some gun cleaner. It's
yeah, yeah,
basically an acetone base, but yeah, it's because once it dries, it's tough to get off you. I
yeah.
used to the amount of kid school things that I went to, or basketball games that I went to with my hands near on pitch black because I'd been waterfall foaming that day is yeah. It's when I was doing over at the Shack project, there was a little hole, not a hole, but a little spot where water was getting under the rocks. It was still on the liner, but getting under the rocks there, and so we were trying to sort of get the edge up and get in there and fill it. And Ed said, just get a bit of geo and put foam on there and fold it, and geo and foam, and and fold it, and then jam it right up in that gap. So I'm sitting there up to my shoulder in this spot trying to get it. As I dragged my arm out, I was from shoulder to fingers. I was covered in that waterfall foam, and I was scrubbing for about 3 days of the build trying to get it all off me.
Yeah, it's a nice warm day, and you're wearing long sleeves, and it's fine. Just don't worry
Yeah,
about it.
waxing the
And
arm hairs on the way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And last question for you, Daniel, is who do you think would be a good guest to have on the podcast?
Oh, geez, yes, lots of good guests. I think I know Patrick said Ben Harris as well, but Ben Harris is one of those guys. He's just a great wealth of knowledge as well. Great design aspects and styles. Have you had Ross on?
Yep.
Ross
Yeah.
Ubergang? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, who else would be? The Reach Boys are good to have on. Oh, Dan Taylor as well. Tailored Water Gardens up in
Yeah.
Queensland's great. Kai from Symbiosis. Oh, yeah, plenty. There's plenty of guys that would give you a good lot to chat about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think you're the second. I think it's just yourself and Patrick who have had on who mainly do the water features. But yeah, I absolutely love them. So yeah, it's an awesome chat. So thank you for coming on and sharing your story.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me. I look forward to seeing some photos of how yours comes up.